Warmest greetings to all my incredible subscribers and new viewers alike. Welcome to another exciting video, where we'll be shedding light on Antiphonary of Street Benigne. The Antiphonary Tonary Missal of Street Benigne, also called Antiphonarium Codex Montpellier or Tonary of Saint-Bénigne of Dijon, was written in the last years of the 10th century, when the Abbot William of Volpiano at Street Benignus of Dijon reformed the liturgy of several monasteries in Burgundy. The chant manuscript records mainly Western plainchant of the Roman-Frankish proper Mass and part of the chant sung during the matins Gregorian chant, but unlike the common form of the Gradual and of the Antiphonary, William organized his manuscript according to the chant genre antiphons with psalmody, alleluia verses, graduals, offertories, and prose for the missal part, and these sections were subdivided into 8 parts according to the octoechos. This disposition followed the order of a tonary, but William of Volpiano wrote not only the incipits of the classified chant, he wrote the complete chant text with the music in Central French neumes which were still written in campo aperto, and added a second alphabetic notation of his own invention for the melodic structure of the codified chant. Brace yourself for an in-depth analysis as we navigate through historical background and its far-reaching implications. This particular type of a fully notate tonary only appeared in Burgundy and Normandy. It can be regarded as a characteristic document of a certain school founded by William of Volpiano, who was reforming abbot at Street Benignus of Dijon since 989. In 1001 he followed a request by Duke Richard II and became first abbot at the Abbey of Fécamp, which was a reforming centre of monasticism in Normandy. Only this manuscript was written during the time of William by the same hand as several other manuscripts of the library of the medical faculty of Montpellier, today Bibliothèque Universitaire de Médecine, which all belong to Street Benigne. It is not known whether it was really written by William of Volpiano in person. The few things known about him can be read in a hagiographic source, the Vita Domini Wilhelmi, in 14 chapters written by his disciple, the Burgundian monk Roald Laber, in 1031, and revised probably by demand of the later Abbot John of Fécamp during the late 11th century. William was born as son of the Almanic Duke Robert of Volpiano at the citadel of his family on the island south, Giulio of the Lake Orta in Piedmont. The legend said that Emperor Otto had conquered this island while William was born, so the emperor became his patron and he was educated as a monk and made his clerical career at Cluny Abbey during the reform of Abbot Majolus, who continued the reform of his predecessor Odo and supported reforms connected with papal politics under influence of the Ottonic emperors. Concerning liturgical reforms, Emperor Otto I already emphasized the need for a reform of monasticism in southern Italy and to abandon local liturgies in favor of the Roman Rite, a kind of second Carolingian reform, and he already wished to liberate Arab Sicily and to organize church provinces of the island, which was mainly populated by Muslims and by Greek Christians. His plan failed after the catastrophic defeat of his son Otto I near Crotone, but the role of Cluny as a centre for liturgical reforms had increased in Ottonic times. William's reforms were not only concerned with liturgy and the new design of local chant books, but also with the construction of new churches and buildings for abandoned abbeys, with canon law, with the organisation of grammar schools and even rural communities of Normandy. It was typical for a career at Cluny Abbey to get one of the most prestigious positions as a cantor and to continue as a reforming abbot in another abbey, which was subjected to this powerful and ambitious abbey. As abbot of Street Benignus, William reformed several monasteries of Burgundy, Lorraine, and the Ile de France. There are some testimonies like the Libellus de Revelation, Edification et Tratate Fiscanensis Monastery, a chronicle of Fécamp, which reports certain resentments against Norman culture and its local liturgical customs. William appeared as a Cluniac reformer, but studies of his liturgical reform, especially of the office chant for Fécamp, did not confirm that he just removed local in favor of Cluniac customs. Within the reform and the history of Norman monasticism, the reform of William of Volpiano was neither the beginning nor its climax. As a reformer, he had to find a balance between local needs and problems and certain interests of the Cluniac abbot, of the Pope, and of the Norman patrons, whose founding activities cultivated a new form of policy. William contributed to this history with the foundation of an own school. According to Veronique Gazy, he did not spend too much time in Normandy during the period about 30 years of his Norman activities, but nevertheless his school could be established, because he ordained his students as abbots. He was not only abbot at Fécamp, but also at Jumiges between 1015 and 1017. He became first abbot of Benigne, a foundation of Countess Judith, Richard I's wife, in 1025. By order of Duke Robert he left Fécamp for John of Ravenna in 1028. Before 1027 he was assisted at the abbey at Benigne by Custos III, an elder and experienced monk and prior from Saint-Bénigne of Dijon, before he followed Suppo as prior at Mont Saint-Michel in 1023. These administrative changes were caused by the establishment of monastic centres during certain periods, in which some abbeys were no longer guided by an abbot, but by a prior of the community who was often called custos, and several new foundations did not always start as an abbey, they were subordinated to older abbeys. These monastic centres, which had the control over various monasteries including former abbeys, were used to control new foundations as well as to obey liturgical and administrative reforms. This practice was continued after William's death. Fécamp and Saint-Bénigne were controlled by one abbot between 1052 and 1054, Abbot John of Ravenna. When the new founded monasteries became abbeys, the abbots were usually chosen among the monks of Fécamp. Only few writings by William have survived in the Abbey of Fécamp, but it is not always easy to decide if the collection of Montpellier, which belonged obviously to the library of the Abbey Street Benignus of Dijon, had this abbey as destination. Michel Huglot remarked that the last part of the manuscript, the real antiphonary with antiphons and responsorials for the matins, was continued by the 13th copy of the Antiphonary of the Abbey of Fécamp Rouen, Bibliotheca Municipal, Miss 254, Olema. So the destination of the Tonary of Saint-Bénigne is still a matter of discussion. On the other hand, customs of Street Benigne like the liturgy for the patron can also be found in other abbeys as Fécamp and Benigne, and the Tonaries of Dijon Montpellier, Miss of Fécamp Rouen, Miss 244, Olema, and of Jumiges Rouen, Miss 248, Olema are so consistent that they can be regarded as documents of one school which can be ascribed to William of Volpiano. In this section, we'll be exploring the alphabetic notation invented by William of Volpiano. One of William's innovations as a cantor and notator was an alphabetic pitch notation. Its point of reference was the Bothian diagram, which displayed the double octave of the system Italian in the diatonic semitonium tonis tonis, the chromatic semitonium semitonium trihemitonium, and the enharmonic tetrachord dicis dicis ditonus. The different positions were represented by alphabetical letters, except the dices, which had special signs not unlike the Tyrianic letters used by Boethius. This alphabetic pitch notation not only offers insights into microtonal shifts used by the cantors of this local school, it proves that the common projection of the piano keyboard on the medieval tone system is inadequate. Like many other letter systems used since the 8th century, also the system of William of Volpiano represented the positions of the Bothian diagram, and the enharmonic signs used for the dices represented not a change into another genus, but microtonal attractions within the diatonic mellows of a certain mode. Concerning the dices, Guido of Arezzo wrote about 1026 in his treatise Micrologus that the dices sharpens the usual tonus between re mere b, d, g, h, or h I with the proportion by proportion of a d, g, or h. Guido's explanation, how to find this interval at the monocode, made it already evident that the dices, taken from the enharmonic division of the tetrachord, was used here as a microtonal shift in different melodic modes of the diatonic genus. In the following section, we'll be immersing ourselves in the captivating world of composition of the manuscript. The Tonary of Saint-Bénigne of Dijon is organized in a very rare form of a fully notated tonary, which serves like a fully notated music manuscript for Mass Gradual and Office Chant Antiphonary. The first division of the chant book is between the books Gradual. of and an antiphonary fragment of which has the matins for Palm Sunday, Street Blasius and Street Hilarius in the conventional liturgical order, but with tonal rubrics. The last leaf was added from another book to use the blank versicide for additions on the last pages written by other hands, chant notated in adiastomatic neumes but without alphabetic notation, and even diastomatic neumes with alphabetic notation. The gradual itself with proper mass chant is divided into 6 parts. The first are antiphons, introits, and communions. The next 3 parts are chant genres which precedes lessons, alleluia verses for gospel readings, the benedictions hymnastrium purorum for prophetic readings, and the graduals for epistle readings, The last 2 parts are an offertorial, and a tractus collection, dedicated to the genre which replaced the alleluia verses during fasten time for all kinds of scriptural readings. The third level of division are the 8 parts according to the octoechos in the order of autentus protus, plagiproti, autentus deuterus, and so on. In the first part, every tonal section has all introits according to the liturgical year cycle and then all communions according to the liturgical order. The whole disposition is not new, but it is identical with tonaries from different regions of the Cluniac monastic association. The only difference is that every chant is not represented by an incipit, it is fully notated in neumes and in alphabetic notation as well. Thanks to this manuscript, even cantors who do not know the chant can memorize the melody together with its tonus. As an example might serve the introitus repetia osmum used as a refrain for Psalm 70 during the procession into the church, at the beginning of the morning mass on Saturday before Pentecost. The introit was written in the first part of the antiphons and is quite at the beginning of the deuterus section written as heading on each page, hence an introit in the third tone or autentus deuterus, the beginning with the psalm incipit and the ending of the psalmody, here called differential number I, follows the antiphon. The antiphons of the entrance introits have the gradual order of the Mass as a rubric at the margin on a verso page as here, left, that is the serial for the day with gradual R, alleluia all or tractus TR, offertorium OF, and communio CO. A conventional tonary with the list of differentia was also attached to the beginning of the manuscript. It was used as an index to find the differential number I or melodic ending used during the recitation of the psalm. Here the incipit refers to Psalm 70 of the Vulgata. This tonary is preceded by an alleluia collection written in Central French neumes in campo aperto. The style of William of Volpiano's tonary which follows is unique, and Michel Hublot called it one of the finest tonaries which survived in the manuscript collections today. The scribe used red ink for the chant text and different colors to decorate its initials, while the neume and the alphabetic notation was written in black ink. As we venture forward, let's take a closer look at William of Volpiano's contribution to the evolution of musical notation and its impact on our understanding. William of Volpiano's innovation of the notation system did not change the habits of Central French neume notation, it just added an own alphabetic pitch notation. Often it was not clear how the letters refer to the neumes. Letter groups usually refer to the group of a ligature, but sometimes neumes were added as well to the letters to help the reading cantor for the coordination. Among the monastic reforms of Normandy, William of Volpiano was an important protagonist among the local abbots, but his alphabetic notation was only used over the following centuries in the Norman monasteries of his school, but never in the later Italo-Norman manuscripts which were rather influenced by the Aquitanian school. A few manuscripts used Central French neumes, but without alphabetic notation. Within the Cluniac monastic association, the cantors of the following generation like Abbot William, who was taught by his uncle Roger at St. Martial Abbey of Limoges, Aquitaine, developed a new diastomatic neume notation which allowed to indicate the ligatures, even if they were separated by the vertical disposition according to their pitch class. His innovation was imitated by Italian cantors, first in northern Italy then in other reform centers of the 11th century like Benevento and Monte Cassino. During the 12th century, 1 or 2 lines were added to help the scribe and the reader for a constant vertical orientation. After the first generation of fully notate neume manuscripts written since the early 10th century, the particular notation system represents a transition between the adiastomatic and diastomatic neumes. During the 11th century, a lot of local traditions, different from the chant repertory of the Roman-Frankish reform, were codified the first time in diastomatic neumes. Old Benventan chant Benventan neumes without lines, Ravenna chant Benventan neumes, Old Roman chant Roman neumes without lines, Ambrosian or Milan's chant square neumes on a penta or tetragram. If you found this video helpful, give it a like and share it with someone who might benefit from it.